Welcome, all seekers, wanderers, and adventurers, to another episode in which I share a recording of a live event that took place in my private Facebook group, The Amethyst Cave. If you would like to take part in the full live event, come join us over on Facebook. But if you're not on Facebook, come support me over on Patreon and support the community over there. That's at patreon.com/ARReynolds. And patrons also get many extra perks in the form of downloadable bonus content, workshops, workbooks, and my music and more. But without further ado, let's dive into some of the highlights of last week's live, in which I shared a number of creative practices, and we dove into some creative practices to help us tap into our inner fires. Good morning, or well, actually afternoon. It is now officially afternoon. So good afternoon, everyone, at least on my little corner of the world. So just while I'm waiting for everybody to come on in, I am just going to set a couple things up now that we are live, because as you can see, I'm in a slightly different location than usual. Usually I'm over on that side, and you get this as my backing. Today, you're getting this wall because there's some exciting things that I am hoping to bring into today's stream that, as I've been saying a lot lately, they're all part of the, well, I guess I could say, it's a new direction that I'm going. Not to discount everything that I've already done and the things that I'm still going to be doing, but yeah, it's a new direction. It is. And I'm really, really, really excited because it's bringing in everything that I absolutely love, which is also why I kind of find it weird calling it new, because it's not really new things to me, but it's all the things that I've been really, really passionate about that I am now bringing to the forefront, and it's coalescing. That's the word, thanks. So, what I'm just setting up here is I'm going to pop myself into the stream as well. Ooh, hi, Tara. Because as you can notice with little, there we go, the little duck in, well, that corner there. I'm just trying out a new platform just so that I can start doing things that are a little bit more interactive, particularly for this new direction that I'm going in. Working off of a phone, which is the way I usually do things, is wonderful, but there's some new things that I'm wanting to bring in, so let's bring on all the technology and let it all flow. So, speaking of flow, I have a whole bunch of stuff planned because, hey, teacher here, we always absolutely overplan everything. Because you never know. Because when you actually sit down and you do the thing, it changes depending on the moment. So what I wanted to do, just at the beginning here, was just go through what I'm wanting to cover off through today, because as most of you know, since I've been talking about it a lot, today is a bit of a sneak peek into the more involved workshops that I am offering as thanks to my Patreon supporters over on Patreon, and also is part of, like I said at the beginning, my new direction that I'm adding in. So just before I jump into all of that, I wanted to give you guys a bit of a heads up as to what's getting covered today, with, of course, slight changes based on flow, technology, whatever it is that occurs in the moment. Hi, Linda. Wonderful to see you in here. And Kim, wonderful to see you as well. So to set the space first, I wanted to pull a card, which is something I really don't do very often, but I find when it comes to tapping into our creativity, even when you're super comfortable with tapping into it, it's wonderful to have an anchor of something that's physical and visual, like a card. So what I'm going to be pulling from here is a wonderful, wonderful deck that I'm choosing specifically because it also was created by an artist. Alyssa is her name, and she is someone who is really, really passionate about the stories from Star Wars. And she's also really, really passionate about tarot cards and art, obviously, being an artist. So she put all of those together and she created this beautiful tarot deck that I'm picking today because it's representative of the fact that we still are creating mythologies today. When we think about mythologies and we think about old stories, we always think about, usually the ancient Greeks is where most people go. People might go to the ancient Romans. Maybe they'll think about ancient India. They'll think about maybe the Babylonians or possibly the Sumerians, although they're really, really obscure and it's probably just me. But, you know, you go to all those different ancient cultures. But the people back then were telling these stories to explore aspects of themselves, to bring out aspects of themselves into the light and acknowledge them and see them and be able to work through them and heal and grow from whatever it was. And I know a lot of people also often think about ancient cultures and they think all those people totally believed that those wacky mythologies and legends were 100% real. And actually, that's not the case. Yes, there were likely some people back then who absolutely did believe those things 100%, because that's just human nature. And there's people nowadays who still believe things that others might be like, but that's totally ridiculous and not in the realm of the 3D reality. But there's people who still believe it. But a lot of people back then did see mythologies and legends and all those oral stories as the teaching tool that they were. Especially a lot of the philosophers, that's where we get a lot of our information, where they would often talk about different myths and legends and folk tales of the time, and they would use them as a teaching tool and acknowledge the fact that they recognized that the famous Hercules and his many labors that he did were absolutely not real in the slightest. No human could actually do those things. So they acknowledge those things and they explore them. So anyway, that takes me back around in a very circular method to this wonderful here. There we go. Like I said, by Alyssa, and it's the Solaris Tarot. And she took the Rider-Waite setup and meshed it with the mythologies and symbols and stories of the Star Wars universe, which is basically one of our modern mythologies. All right, so today, oh, all right. So this is the card that I've pulled to set our space today, and oh my gosh, it's a wonderful one. So the Ace of Swords there. It's a wonderfully simplistic one. That's another thing I love about this deck, is it really gets down to the basic symbols. And Ace of Swords is about new beginnings. It's about finally following through with your curiosity and exploring it, moving forward with it, being like, thing has tweaked my interest and now I'm going to follow it, which is perfect for this entire stream today, and really why I am doing this to begin with. I, as you all know, I'm really passionate about creativity, and I believe everybody is creative, regardless of whether or not we actually wear the word creative or artist or musician or writer or whatever as a hat. We all have that ability, and it just comes down to whether or not we wish to choose to practice that skill and develop that skill, because creativity is a skill, regardless, again, of people saying, well, this person is naturally creative, this person's a natural musician, this person's a natural artist. Sure, everybody is a natural at something, but everybody can also develop the skill if you have the focus and the willpower and the desire to do so. So that's one of the things that's really driving all of this. And then the other thing is my favorite proverb, which most of you will probably be familiar with. I don't think I've mentioned it before, but it is the one that goes a little like this. If you give a man a fish, or if you give a person a fish, give a woman a fish, if you give someone a fish, you will feed them for one day. But if you teach them to fish, you will feed them for a lifetime. And I'd totally forgotten about that proverb and it being my favorite. But again, my wonderful team reminded me of it just 2 days ago, actually. And they were like, that is the summarization of everything that we want you to do right now, Alyssa. So that proverb is also now kind of the guiding force behind what I'm doing and the new directions that I'm going. So onwards with our little journey here today. Before we dive into the actual practices, I'm going to talk a little bit about them. And while I'm talking about it, it's also going to give you guys a little bit of a chance, if you weren't able to go and grab some sort of blank journal. So a journal without lines, maybe a sketchbook, or even just some blank pieces of paper if you don't have an unlined journal or a sketchbook, because what we're going to be moving into for the rest of the stream here is I am going to be presenting all of you with both some questions, some ideas, just some general prompts, and I'm going to be getting you to then write based off of those prompts. You can sketch, you can do full-on really detailed art, you can scribble and doodle, you can do both. Whatever it is that you wish to do, you can absolutely do. You don't even have to write in complete sentences. You could just write random words all over the page. I'm going to be showing you guys some examples of this and just explaining what this process is. But if you don't have something to write with and write on that is totally unlined, blank paper of some sort. See if you're able to grab some. Whew. And just wanted to have a look here at the comments. Oh, hi, Christopher. Wonderful to see you. Ooh, yes. Yeah, Ace of Swords is absolutely perfect. Ooh, and hello, Kristen. Wonderful to see you in here as well. So welcome, 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 all of you who are just kind of flowing in here. You're coming at a perfect time. So just what is all of these practices that I'm talking about? Well, they fall under the term of transformative inquiry. And it's essentially a really fancy sounding term for a process that was built out of particularly this one wonderful, wonderful gentleman, Dr. Gregory Coget, who is a Native American author and professor and educator from New Mexico. And he's one of the spearheaders right now in terms of bringing a lot of Indigenous values, particularly around education and learning, and bringing it in alignment with all of our Western ways of educating and viewing the world, and being like, hey, these two things are not mutually exclusive. Let's mesh them together and create something that is unified, because that's what we're all trying to do. We're all trying to come together in a form of unity, which is really the only way that, well, not the only way that we're going to heal the whole world, but a lot of it comes from within, but that's beside the point. So anyway, this transformative inquiry that has really been developed by Coget and many, many other educators and thinkers and just people at the forefront of let's bring things together and heal, because why are we dividing everything? Why are we saying that this stuff has to be different and separate? So that's kind of where it's come from, if you're curious about digging into it a little bit more. And it's something that I came across when I was at university myself. And I was very, very fortunate to attend a university that has quite a huge, it places a huge value in integrating a lot of Indigenous ways of educating with the Western ways of doing things. And I specifically was focusing on a lot of those courses through my own education degree as well. So let me just grab the book here, just so that before I get you guys set up, I can show you some of the things that I'm talking about, and may help to ground some of these things as well for those of you who may not feel like you're really, really tuned in with your creativity yet at this point. Ooh, glad you're able to pop on in, Christopher. Thanks for popping on in. It's wonderful to have you. So the transformative inquiry is really built around daily practices. So at the beginning there, I was talking about how creativity is a practice. It's something that you need to be doing every single day. Working through this kind of path involves first checking in with yourself every single morning. And the way that the transformative inquiry works, and this again can be absolutely adapted to the individual, and I'm sure many of you are already also doing some form of it. It is sitting quietly with yourself. So just letting yourself get into a bit of a meditative state, whether you specifically are sitting down and meditating, or you are just listening to some music that helps to center you and calm you and bring you into the moment, or you go out for a walk first and you come back and then you sit down. Whatever it is that you do, then what follows is something known as a morning journal. Being in the afternoon, this is going to be a little bit more of a morning journal today, but in practice, you're meant to be doing it in the morning. So right when you've just woken up and you've done whatever it is that you usually do to just center yourself, be it sitting and meditating or going out for a walk or listening to music. And the morning journal is meant to be something that is absolutely stream of consciousness. So there are no prompts. You just need to sit down and you start writing whatever is in your mind. So when I'm talking about stream of consciousness, this means writing down all of the words that are popping up in your head. So that voice that is chattering at you in your head all of the time, you are now taking it from your head and translating it down into the paper. And for some people, that might be pretty close, almost literal. For others, it's just catching on to one idea, and they notice in their brain this morning that they're maybe thinking about something that they're doing later on in the day, or they're thinking about where they were yesterday, or they've got thoughts about the whole past month, or maybe they have one particular question that they've been mulling over, or they just came back from a walk and they're thinking about, it was absolutely beautiful outside today. It was quiet and foggy, or maybe bright and sunny. Whatever the case is, you just dive in to wherever your thoughts are, which, again, I know for some people, this is not a natural thing to do, and this is where the practice comes in. And this is, again, where giving yourself time to just sit and get centered is really, really, really helpful, because it can help you just push aside things that maybe you don't want to focus on, or things that are maybe blocking you from sitting down and just writing stream of conscious, and be able to actually do that. So that's the morning pages. And then what you do with the morning pages after you've written, usually 5 or 10 minutes is a good time. But again, just listening to yourself and how much time you need is the key. And once you've finished writing, one thing that I really like to do, just because my brain's always all over the place with a million different things, is I like to look back through whatever it was that I wrote, because I'm usually not totally aware of exactly where my stream of thought is going, hence the stream of thought. And I'll take a different color than what I wrote in, and I'll just start circling words that pop out at me. Usually by circling these words that pop out at me, or words that I notice keep repeating, that then helps me to pin down where my head is at that day, things that I'm thinking about or going through. So for example, what I have here, and we'll see how this goes, is my original morning journal that I used when I was first starting this whole process. So as you can see here, yep, there we go. I've got a number of different words that are just circled in this scroll of thoughts. And A lot of them had to do with what I was grappling with at the time when I was about 22, and it was really thinking about bringing together my whole self, which, yay me, I have finally gotten to that point of bringing my whole self together. But that's one thing that you can do after you've done the morning pages, to just reflect upon it, because the biggest tenet of transformative inquiry is practicing reflection. And whatever you're doing, once you've gotten it out of you, so you pull out all the emotions, the thoughts, the feelings, then you look back on it, you reflect, you feel within about how do those words that are popping up make me feel? What are they directing me toward? Or if you were sketching a bunch, what were those images? Where were those images coming from? Or what do those images represent? So for my other thing, and the next step is the what are basically known as like seasonal counts. So you could call them, seeing as it's still winter right now, for at least those of us up on the northern hemisphere, they'd be winter counts. And it's spring, you might call them spring counts. If it's autumn counts, and so on. And they're essentially sketches or just random like placements of words. So again, kind of a mix of the two, whatever you're feeling, that are then represent everything that you've just been reflecting upon and putting down on your paper through your morning journals in the week. You then put into that count. So for another example, here's the first count that I'd ever done also in this whole journal as well. So I chose to do just a full image. And as you can see here, there's a little badger, a floating balloon, a falling star. I've got a Siamese cat in the moon. It's nighttime. You do not have to be an artist to do this stuff. You're just putting things onto paper and having fun with it. And that particular image that I just showed you was, again, kind of representative of a lot of different symbols of things that I was processing at the time, as well as the first time that I met my spirit guide, the badger, who calls herself Luna, who has followed me around ever since, or at least I've been very, very aware of her since that point. So that's the seasonal counts, and you want to be doing those like every week, just once a week, to reflect. And then you may choose to do one once a month as well, to then reflect on the month. And then you may also choose to do one once every 6 months, or at the end of every season, at the end of the year. See the theme going on here? All the reflection, all of the reflection. That's, like, in a nutshell, is just developing an awareness, which, going back to creativity, that's what creativity is. It's an awareness of that which is beyond what we are just physically interacting with. It's the skill that allows us to take that which is beyond our physical 3D reality and bring all the things together, all unified again. Another big theme, unity. So that's the autumn count and the morning journal. And, or I keep saying autumn counts. I'm used to calling them autumn counts because that's when I was first doing them. Okay, so the seasonal counts and the morning journal, and those are the two main things that are a part of it, and then the other aspects of it that flow in, that I'll be bringing in more probably in other streams, are sharing a lot of stories. So telling stories orally, talking about these different stories, exploring how they make us feel, things that they bring up within us, why they bring up certain feelings within us, and using their stories as a place to process and heal and grow. And those stories will be both stories that were originally orally told, that have now been written down in a form, and I'll just be retelling one of those versions, or they will also be ones that are a little bit more modern, a little bit more current as well. But I'm going to be doing that more on my much longer streams, because what I wanted to do today was give you guys a chance to actually try out these morning journals, which, yes, I know it's not necessarily morning. And then I have a couple other prompts as well that I wanted to walk through with all of you, which are also a number of different things that were built out of and work that Kajette does, and are also things that I've just personally played around with and I'm building as well. So that's it. I hope you guys have pencil, pen, blank paper to write on. You don't have to. I'm not making you do this. But if you do, have that ready, because what I'm going to be doing now is I am going to give us a time of about 10 minutes. So I've got a timer that I'm going to set, and then we're going to try out some technology and go with the flow here. I am going to play a little bit of piano. It's likely going to be just some of my just tapping into the general energies right now kind of stuff. Although, like I said at the beginning, sometimes I may definitely play some pieces that other people have composed. I might still do that today, I don't know. I have all my teacher plans. All right. So, what I invite all of you to do, is to just get settled. Hopefully you're in a comfortable spot. Make yourself comfortable if you're not. Have your writing, your sketching tools ready. And together, in this space that we are creating, we all acknowledge that there is one source in essence, the creatrix of all existences in forms infinite and manifested, always in our love, and we are all lovers. So, as I know some of you are probably just kind of coming out of whatever you're writing, don't have to totally stop. You can keep going as I'm chatting here. And I am going to be just talking about the next thing that we're going to be moving into. Like I was saying before, I just made that space for you to just delve into whatever you're feeling right in this moment. I've got a couple other prompts now that I wanted to just share with all of you, and again give you some space to explore those prompts. And in the actual workshops, and then also in my longer lives that I'm going to be doing over on Twitch for different individuals, there'll be just more time and space built to start up some discussions and having having some sharing space. Apparently playing piano and kind of just channeling that energy through fingers makes my voice croaky. I would love to hear from all of you, at the very least, so just how you kind of found doing that. I'd also be curious about how the music translated a little bit, because I am working on making it a little bit more accessible in terms of the audio as well for all of you, and for everyone else as I'm moving forward. Like I said at the beginning, this is very much a flowing sort of format where we just go with whatever appears in the moment. Oh, good to hear, Madeline. Thanks. That's good. All right. So let me just grab my trusty little, that was squeaky, journal here. And one of the practices that I find is really, really helpful when you are just kind of starting out on your creative journey, or maybe you are just stuck in that rut, is to connect with nature and look at nature, which we all are perceiving with our 5 senses, our 5 physical senses, and then begin to look beyond it and think about how we define that thing in nature based on the collective unconsciousness. So that's tapping into the different archetypes and symbols that we attach with things in nature, that we attach with absolutely everything. This goes back actually to something that you probably learned in high school, but it's probably flown out the brain. And that's just the difference between the denotation and connotation of words. Denotation being the basic dictionary definition, so the literal definition of a tree, versus the connotation of that particular word, and how every word that we speak has varying degrees of positive and negative connotations, which, you know, is also at the heart of the whole positive affirmation and reframing the way that we speak. But that's a whole other conversation. So, to this particular practice, it helps sometimes for some people to do this when they're out in nature, because again, depending on your comfort level with tapping into your innate creativity, those of you who maybe aren't as comfortable with doing that may find this activity works a lot better if you're actually outside, sitting in nature. But you don't have to be at all. And right now, because I'm assuming that most of you are probably indoors somewhere, Although I've certainly had people connecting in on streams and they've been outside. And I'm like, your Wi-Fi is awesome if you can pull that off. For now, though, we're just going to imagine one particular aspect of nature. And that is one that often gets a lot of negative connotation to it, and that is lightning. And so what I want all of you to do, just on the same paper, or you're probably needing to flip over to a fresh piece of paper on whatever you were writing your morning journal on, and just writing down the first words that come to mind when you think of lightning. What do you think of? What words come to mind when you hold the word lightning in your head? And as you're holding the word lightning in your, you may also actually see the lightning. Maybe you're also letting yourself hear the thunder that comes along with lightning. Maybe you are also feeling the charge that happens in the air, or the general mugginess that often happens just with the rain that's coming down. And write down the words that come to mind when you think of lightning. Okay, and because this is just writing off the cuff, fast as you can, first things that come to mind, don't be thinking about it. Whatever you've written down now, or hopefully you're just finishing off writing down a few things. I'm just going to keep talking though, so you can keep writing things down if they're coming up. The words that you've written down, when you've held the word lightning in your head, notice whether the words you've written down that you associate with lightning, do they have more of a positive connotation to them, or do they have more of a negative connotation? Or is it a mix of both? And what kinds of words are you using? Are you using words that are attached more to your sense of sight, your sense of smell, your sense of taste? If you could taste kind of the charge in the air, which, hey, I've heard people do. Everyone has all sorts of different ways that they even connect with the 3D world with their senses. It's not just with your non-3D senses that have a varying degree of connections. So taste, smell, or how you hear it. Or do you have a bit of a mix? Ooh, neat, bright flashes, God's fireworks, colors of light, and intensity. Ooh. She's using something else to refer to the lightning, which is something many of you may do. And that is also part of creativity. It's taking different things that we're experiencing in our life and we're using them to help connect to and make connections with the things that are around us, which then helps others to be able to connect with those same things at the same level. So again, for example, just using Tara's phrase of God's fireworks, that one, for those of you who use the name of God, or you're using terms that come from your personal experience, you're using terms that come from things you've read. So for example, I tend to bring in a lot of language that comes out of mythology, and people look at my writing sometimes and they're like, what in the world are you talking about, Alyssa, when I use a phrase like Hamlet's mill, which comes from a really, really old Finnish myth about this folk hero, basically, of Hamnet. It's an interesting one because it was, originally an oral story and then got written down by various different people from different perspectives and backgrounds. And anyway, my point is, there's a specific phrase over there that has to do with talking about the firmament and like the whole sky, and how there's this mill in this Finnish myth known as the Sampo that was holding up the sky. And it links a lot more to a lot of astrology. It's fascinating because it's basically using story to teach the movement of the planets and the stars. But going back to Tara's example, is that we'll be using, some of us, different words and phrases and things that are coming from our own learning, our own backgrounds, our own religions, our own practices that are very individual to us. And that's another thing to notice, because that's an integral part of who we are and how we are interacting with and relating to the world that is around us. Because your creativity, again, it's this little inner fire that we all have. And to really, really get in touch with it, you want to get to know yourself and all your aspects and be really, really, really aware of it, really conscious of it, which goes back to that practice of reflection, and making sure that you're writing things down, so that you can go back and you can see the record of it. And you can really, really reflect, because as much as oral traditions, they can get a little bit faulty, particularly nowadays, and even back then, just because of human memory. So this particular practice of picking one thing from nature every day and just writing down all the words that you associate with it, and then taking note of about that particular word, and then noticing through the week, what are the kinds of words you're using? Are they coming from personal experience where you can see your particular interests, your religions, your practices, your life experiences? Again, with my passion about mythology, that comes from the things that I've read in my own education. Someone else who is more scientifically brained could probably name off like all the Latin names for like a mushroom that they're looking at, or if they're in like, I don't know, forest, and they'd name off all the Latin names for the different foliage. That would be an integral part of their identity and their creativity. Oh, thanks, Madeline. Oh, literary history lessons from me. Oh my gosh. Don't encourage me too much, Madeline, because that is a rabbit hole. Although I am kind of going down that direction a little bit, because I am going to be sharing a lot of old stories, and yeah, believe me, I will probably go on a rant. But for right now, I need to hold back, because today is not about delving into all the intricate little details of myth and history and literature. Although, yes, I do love it. All right, I wanted to keep going here with a couple more things that I'm going to get you guys to do, just in terms of some practices that you can be bringing in daily, to be building that creative skill, or sparking it again, or just building it further. So the next thing is 3 questions that, again, come from the wonderful Dr. Courgette. And they are questions that are absolutely enormous, and you may not necessarily this particular practice every single week. This one's probably more going to be a one-off or maybe once a year kind of thing, because these questions really, really pin down your thought processes and even your goals and your role and your purpose here. And this one now has taken those two massive, massive questions that maybe you had some thoughts about. When you look back at these questions, maybe later today or another day, maybe you have some more thoughts about those first two questions. Or maybe you had those two questions and you looked at them and you were like, I have no idea where to start. And that's because those two huge questions are flowing into this question here. How do we care for our spirits? It flows into this one. Because as you're going and exploring this one, you'll likely be running across an answer that is very specific to you and yourself and where you are at. Okay. And whatever it may be that you're writing about, sketching in answer to this question, or whatever you may write about or sketch about in answer to this question at a later point. This is also part of your creative self, because creativity, again, it's part of your spirit. It is you. And every time you're tapping into it, you're tapping into your spirit. So just like with everything, you need to care for it. Like a seed that you plant in the ground, you need to care for that seed. You need to water that seed. You need to give that seed sunlight, and it's going to slowly grow. And it's going to grow the more you care for it. There's going to be times, though, where that spirit, that little seed spirit, is going to come across struggle and troubles, and it's going to be hit by lightning or smushed by too much rain or frozen by snow. And as it keeps growing, maybe it grows a little bit crooked, and it's not this straight, perfect seeming kind of fir tree like the sort that get grown at the Christmas tree farms that are just like perfectly straight, perfectly conical. No, the trees of nature grow in spite of everything, and they're more beautiful for all their crookedness and the moss and lichen hanging off of them, or the mushroom growths, or maybe getting split by a piece of lightning or burned a little bit by a forest fire. But the point is that to be able to solve those first two questions, you need to first really think about and explore and focus on the third one. And then you can go back to the other two. And again, these three questions are ones that you may keep just as something that you periodically go back to, like every year or like after a certain period of time, and just think about it and reflect on how are you caring for your spirit? What are you doing to care for it? Are you doing anything? All right. So after that one, I have two more that I wanted to go through that are a little bit more now digging deep within. And the first one has to do with tapping into whatever memory from your past first comes to mind, or maybe you have a couple that start coming to mind. Don't, when you're doing this, feel like you have to delve into like something deep in your childhood. You just go with wherever you're at. And this is something, again, that you want to do semi-regularly. There's not really a specific like schedule, I'd say, for this, kind of like with the morning journals or the seasonal counts. This is more something to just do whenever you feel that creative rut or you're kind of stuck, just to write memories in the center of a page and then start sketching things or writing things down. And you might not even write memories in the center either. You might just start scribbling down things that you are thinking about, or end up with like a whole sketch. So this here, for example, was another memories thing that I'd done, which is literally a bird on a piece of driftwood, just on off the strait with I always forget the name of those mountains, but they're the mountains that are down on the north end of Washington, across the strait, down where the US is. Anyway, I did a picture of that, and that was a memory where I was literally drawing just a memory of a day when I saw a bird like perched on a piece of driftwood. So it's a process of being aware of the things around you and the things within you that are influencing you. So I'm just going to give all of you a minute, and I'm going to pull that off, a minute or so, just to do a little bit of a brainstorm just around memories. And then after the fact, for those of you who are up for sharing, I'd just love to hear like from what time period the memories are coming from. If they're just coming from just yesterday, or if you're thinking about something from last year or 5 years ago or 10 years ago, and whether it's like a whole bunch of stuff or maybe just one thing. But for now, I'm going to do a little bit more playing and just let you kind of delve into that and have a little bit of a brainstorm. I definitely encourage all of you to, after we're finished with the live today, to take some of the things that I've talked about and try them out yourself. And again, these are things that are best done if they're practiced regularly, because creativity is a skill. And some of the things might not necessarily work for you. You might find ways to adapt them to and change them so that they do work for you. For example, again, because all of these things are coming from like a lot of indigenous values and ways of educating, get yourself outside when you're doing this, when you're reflecting. Because that's the heart of the Indigenous education system, is very much a way of learning by doing with nature. So I really, really encourage that because that's absolutely magical and special to be doing that. And then it's tapping a little bit more into the true kind of spirit of where all of this originally came from. Although coming from me now, it's of course being colored and adapted based on my own backgrounds and experiences. That's absolutely totally different from how these first started. So, speaking of those things that are us, that define who we are, that are a part of what makes our whole self. My last kind of brainstorm and prompt that, again, like with all this stuff, can be full of doodles. It can be just writing random words on a page. You can be writing in full sentences. You could just do pictures, whatever you feel drawn to doing, is to brainstorm all the different words, the phrases, the symbols that you identify with. So again, to kind of give you guys an example to jump off of, got here the very first one I did, which, as you can see, I kind of did a mix of words, some kind of short phrases, various images. You can see again the repetition of my wonderful spirit animal, Luna the badger, as well as Irish dance and music, and reading and hiking and writing and swimming. And I was also going through thinking about the masks that we all wear. So all the way back to when I was 22, I was thinking about this stuff that I am now bringing forward. And this was all centered around the question, who is my whole self? Okay, so who is my whole self? And that, I'll just bring it up, is kind of the prompt question for this whole self brainstorm. And just putting down whatever comes to mind. And again, it could be things that are really, really current and present. There's things that I was just sharing off of my first page that I ever did for the whole self. Were things that were very much part of that moment and that time when I was 22. And really, it was when I was reconnecting with spirit after having basically my whole school life disconnecting from spirit, despite having so connected with the fairies as a child. And that's where everything kind of restarted again, was just this brainstorming and connecting with, okay, these are all the different aspects of self. Interestingly, most of it hasn't changed too much. But again, I am just going to give you guys all a moment or two to do a little bit of a brainstorm. And if anyone wishes to share, you're certainly welcome to, but you can absolutely just hold on to it, keep exploring it yourself. But first, let's delve in. a little bit of some last music there. I really hope that just with the few things that I've done today, even though I wasn't giving you guys full good chunks of time to really sink into some of these things, just because I wanted to go through a bunch of practices and give you guys kind of a sneak peek into what I'm going to be doing, both just generally on Twitch, and then also what I will be giving more space to for my patrons as well. So over there on patreon.com, which I'll just bring up there. So that's my link to my Patreon. That's the platform where I'll be doing things like this in a lot more detail, particularly in terms of actually opening space for discussion. And for those of you who aren't in the Amethyst Cave and who are watching this back on YouTube, I'm still going to be posting everything I do in the Amethyst Cave over on YouTube, things that I'm going to be doing on Twitch in terms of these kind of sessions in a bigger, broader scale. I'll also be putting to YouTube. And then for those of you who are wishing for a little bit more of smaller group work where you can really sink into some discussion and practice and get a little bit more one-on-one with me, you can pop over to Patreon. Even if you don't want that, I appreciate any support that you are able to give me, whether it is just being here on the lives, or if you go and just sign up for one of my lower tiers of Patreon that are just more designed just for those of you who are able to wish to support me in that format, so that I can bring more complex kind of lives to all of you. Also, I am hoping to, at some point this year, start recording a lot of my channeled music as well, which is going to involve getting into kind of some higher tiers of recording equipment. So that's another side of things as well that I'm slowly saving up for, so that I can give back really good quality recordings to all of you for whatever support you're able to give me or wish to. And I'm really thankful for all of it, especially all of you here in the Amethyst Cave. I know I always say it, but you guys are wonderful. And it's really thanks to all of you that I am where I am today, and that I am going where I'm going. So, thank you, Madeline. She's just saying, I'm glad this was helpful and fun for you. Oh, wow. You got a cramp because you were just doing all that writing. Oh my gosh, Madeline, oh dear. Don't give yourself a cramp. Don't hurt yourself too much. I've done that too many times. Gotten so lost in things. So that's for time yourself. But it's nice to hear though that you just got all of that stuff out. That's amazing. Aw, and thank you, Tara. Aw. Glad you love my playing. I am, yeah, like I said, definitely going to be doing a lot more, and hopefully we'll be able to kind of get this recorded. But at the very least, I'm going to be posting a lot more just piano music, just straight up to YouTube as well. And of course, I'll put it into the Amethyst Cave too. So that's a whole other venture, speaking of all the things. But with that, I will let all of you go, and I would love to hear, just going forward, for those of you down in YouTube in the comments below if you would like to share some of the things that came up during this live, or for those of you watching back in the Amethyst Cave, if you'd like to share it in the comments below, things that came up. I do check all of these comments and things after the fact as well, because I know not everybody can watch live, and especially for something like this, I love hearing what comes up for people, because the things that are coming up for all of you guys are then things that inform what I do going forward. Again, teacher here. I'm always very, very conscious of my audience's energy and where they're at and what's going on. And that tends to then direct the kinds of topics that I personally delve into, not even going into what Spirit says I should focus on. But that is all to say, I do really, really value any comments that you have just about anything that comes up during these lives. And thank you again to those of you who were here live with me. And I will actually be seeing everybody here in the Amethyst Cave next Saturday, because I'm doing a special one-off poetry reading, solely reading poetry. At least right now, it's just going to be all the poetry, just because I've had a lot of people again asking about it. So I was making it all for all of you, and those of you who had commented that you wanted to hear more of my poetry. So that's next weekend, and that'll be a little bit of a one-off, and also a preface into something else I'm going to be continuing on my YouTube channel. So yes, you guys can find me in many places now. Over on YouTube, I'm here in the Amethyst Cave, on Facebook. I'm back on Instagram under A.R. Reynolds, doing my poetry. That's actually A.R.Reynolds, but probably have seen some posts in the Amethyst Cave about that as well. And yeah, I'm going to be over on Twitch doing really, really long creative streams as well. So I am all over the place these days. And with that, have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. And I will see you next week. All right.